Justin, I've made you the presenter.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen at this time?
Okay, if everyone who's on the call could please put yourself on mute. It's really important, and thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Michelle Socker. I am the Director of Sponsorships and Special Events at the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your schedule to join this call. And we want to recognize that we are in a fluid business climate. And I would like to share with you, I know there's many challenges, but I want to share that I've been very inspired at seeing the courage, innovation, and creativity of many of our business owners and also those who, like Justin, who will be presenting today, who are eager and willing to share lessons learned, best practices, and hopefully inspirational stories to help everyone get through each day. And I know we're all taking one day at a time, but hopefully you'll have tools at the end of this call, which I'm confident you will, to be the most productive you possibly can. So I just want to go over 3 housekeeping things quickly. First, it's so important if everyone could keep your phone on mute. That, of course, reduces echoes and other noises from all of us, or many of us, working from home now. So thank you for that. With that said, I'm sure there will be interesting questions that you'd like to ask. Please hold those until the very end, and you can present them through chat. If you look at your name and click on your name where you logged in, there's a drop-down button, and you will see you have the option for chat. Please send me, again, my name is Michelle Socker, that's how I'm listed on this call. Send all of your chat questions to me, and I will conduct that part at the end. We are recording, for those of you who just jumped on the call and didn't hear us say that a little bit earlier. We are recording, we do that on purpose, and that therefore we can share this on our website today after we conduct this meeting, and you can share it and send it, of course, to colleagues, friends, and family. So please do look for that. All right, I'd also like to give Justin a proper introduction. I've had the privilege of working professionally with Justin for the last year, and he is a longstanding chamber member and also a trustee. He has been a pleasure to work with. He's done other webinars for us on digital-based marketing. He is a thought leader in his industry, and he is the CEO of Lincoln Digital Group. Lincoln Digital provides high-quality marketing, advertising solutions to large businesses and premium brands. His experience includes acting as agency of record for multinational home goods manufacturer, the second largest automotive group in the nation by sales, a publicly traded automotive transport company, an award-winning Palm Beach home builder, and countless other businesses spanning architecture, jewelry, medical, and technology industry. He has successfully negotiated custom digital marketing partnerships with Live Nation, as well as other premium publishers, and possesses international marketing experience in Canada, China, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Mexico. In managing individual digital marketing budgets of up to $250,000 per month for clients, he and his team have developed a strong, disciplined, and proven approach to ensuring cost effectiveness of digital marketing resources. He's a published author, keynote speaker, highly experienced delivering analysis, recommendations, and digital marketing measurement presentations to C-suite folks, including CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, and other business leaders. So, Justin, boy, are we privileged to have you as a chamber member, and I'm so pleased to present you as a speaker today. And you have a timely and pertinent topic, and so I am going to hand this call over to you and mute my phone. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to the entire Chamber of Commerce. I am going to share my screen and camera at this time. Hopefully everyone is able to see me. As far as this challenging time we're in, I think everyone here is thankful to both you and the entire Chamber of Commerce for hosting the event and during a time of unusual schedules and uncertainty about how to proceed and execute in the business world today. I think it's leadership we all can benefit from, so thank you. Thank you to the audience as well. First and foremost, I hope everyone in your life is safe and healthy, and that's obviously our top concern. When it is time to focus on business, I do want to provide you with the tools, and some tips from our 7 years of working remotely as a digital agency to help you make the most of this unusual, challenging, and different time. So while we are a digital agency, and I do consider marketing my true field of expertise, everything that Michelle had mentioned in our introduction has been done on a remote basis. So we've been operating a remote model since 2013. And that being said, I will go ahead and begin the slides, a little bit of our overview. So in addition to being founded as a remote agency 7 years ago, okay, we've used that agency and this remote platform, our tools, our tips, our guidance that we'll be providing today to manage 10 to 15 remote personnel throughout the United States consistently since 2017. So roughly 3 years of learning, experience, and other insights from managing a 10 to 15 person team. And of course, before we got there, we were a smaller team, so I will share some tips along the way as to how you can gradually scale and grow on a remote platform. And then importantly, it's the impact on clients. So our remote platform is utilized to support campaigns and markets everywhere from the United States down to Ecuador. So not only are we managing upwards of a dozen people remotely, but our client work calls for us to do so remotely from the United States to Ecuador. So hopefully I'm able to share some of my experience, learnings, trials, errors with you so you can make the most out of this unique time in business. Okay, so a brief note on today's information. It is being recorded, so of course the Chamber will be happy to provide this. Individually, please refrain from any other photos or videos or recordings. Okay, so I know we've heard a lot about remote work, but I thought a good place to start would be with some objective, unbiased information on why this is important today. And so there are some statistics here that come from some pretty well-known sources that I want to share. First one all the way on the left, Global Workplace Analytics, they're a firm that's been in business for quite a while, a research company. They estimate that employers will save have saved $11,000 per year per employee when they allow work from home. Sorry, I just got a note here. Sorry, I just got an odd pop-up. Okay, so there is approximately an $11,000 annual savings when work from home is allowed 50% of the time. Okay, so that's one reason why employers should view this information as important. The middle metric from a payroll company called SurePayroll, you may have heard of them. They're a competitor to ADP and some of the others. They did a study that said 86% of workers prefer to work alone remotely for maximum productivity. So when you think about that, that's basically 85% of the workforce saying, I'm at my best when I am alone and I'm remote. And of course, we all want the best from every member of our team, regardless of their particular role or position. And then lastly, a study by CBRE, CB Richard Ellis, the commercial real estate firm is how they're known. They conducted a study and found that 69% of millennials, so in other words, the current and future of the workforce, would trade other benefits that they may be offered from their employer for more remote work opportunities. Okay. So hopefully from these stats, you'll understand that there are opportunities for business improvement and growth and retention of talent and acquisition of new talent, the more and more remote work can be implemented successfully by your organization. Okay, so a little bit of an overview on the agenda, 5 actions to take today as promised in the headline, how executives and managers can lead the organization remotely, how employees and team members can demonstrate progress remotely, and lastly, a bit of a bonus, but given the fluid climate, how your business can implement some very basic marketing response tips to provide as much peace of mind and confidence in your customer base as possible, that you're keeping your products hygienic and delivering your services with as much hygiene as possible. Okay, so these are the overview of the 5 tips for immediate action, and we'll go through them in more detail. But as we begin here, it all starts with the mindset. Okay, and this is where I think it's important to understand, to take a step back and understand that yes, this is different. This is challenging, but it is an opportunity. And the first way you're able to make the best of this opportunity is by saying to yourself, I am at work. Okay, it does not matter that I am home. It does not matter that I'm sitting in a bedroom or another room in my house. I am at work. Okay, and so that is a mental switch that most people need to make. All I can say is, from a guidance standpoint, is hold yourself to the same conduct guidelines as the office. And that will be different for everyone in every office, I understand. But I think it would help everyone, and it certainly helped me when I began to think of it as being at work. I wouldn't do anything I wouldn't do in front of other team members, and I would act as if my supervisor is there. Okay? And in that mindset, something that can probably help you focused, disciplined, and executing on the mindset that you are at work is by looking at it for what it is. It's an opportunity to write your future work conditions. As you saw in one of the previous slides, there are numerous statistical reasons why remote work seems to benefit the economy and would be a preferred choice for the workforce. So if you view that through the opportunity of this being time to write your future work, I think your mindset will be very strong. And so mindset and approaching it as if you're at work, regardless of where you are, is the first tip and takeaway. Okay, the second one, and this was probably the most challenging one for me during my time, and I had to do a good bit of reading and put a good bit of thought into my time management schedule to get this right, because very easily we can fall off track when working remotely. And so what I did and what we recommend to our team members and others is to segment your day into buckets. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you zoom out on your day and take a look at the major items or functions that you're consistently performing, chances are they fall into a general bucket like strategy, training, sales, testing, quality assurance, project planning. Those are all the general buckets. And so what I did is I took my general buckets, which are primarily strategy, sales, and tactical, and I set up a daily schedule that I adhere to. And it's written down, and I had to check it every day for a while, and I will show it to you on the next slide. Is how, as far as how it looks, so you can adapt it. But it makes the process of working from a remote place much easier, because this bucket, when I approach it like this, keeps me on track. Okay, so this is how I time segment my day. And of course, everyone's time periods and functions will be different. And no, this doesn't mean I only start at 8:30 and then immediately at 5, but as far as how I plan my day, these are how I plan my major buckets throughout the normal workday Eastern time. Importantly, I think as you think about where to start and how to time segment your day, I would start by a concept I spoke about on the previous slide, which is time leverage. And think about time leverage like this. If you picture a row of dominoes, time leverage is how you make sure the big dominoes fall first. And so in other words, if there's something that everyone on your team needs to know, or key members of your team need to know as the day gets started, work and communicate on that item first. If a project or a task makes no difference if it's completed at 9 a.m. versus 5 p.m., it's okay to complete it at 5 p.m. because you have no time leverage from doing it earlier. So this is certainly a major part of how I stay on track. It's, again, something we shared with our remote team members. And it's also beneficial to team coordination, because when you share this across your teams, people know what you may be working on at certain times. And of course, coordination and synchronization is even more important in the remote environment. So having others with the ability to know what you're working on is certainly highly important for better efficiency, especially in the beginning. Okay, so if you're ever feeling lost, if you're ever feeling like you don't know what to work on next, put together a time segment schedule like this. It will keep you focused and on track. Okay. So that was tip number 2. Tip number 3 from working remotely. And I will preface this by saying that the list of tools for dashboards and collaboration are something that could benefit your business in a brick and mortar environment as well. It's not just something that could benefit from a remote or has a place in a remote environment. These are all things that I'm sure many businesses or your business may be doing already, and it's important to make sure they're ready to be used remotely. So what do I mean by that? I mean that your project management tool is able to be accessed offsite, that there are no certificates or validations so that it can only be accessed from your facility, for instance. It means that all employees are able to have access to your file storage and continuity tools. So Dropbox, Google Drive, Box, maybe your own private servers. For people who work on teams and files, making sure that your file storage process and your file continuity process, in other words, how you name it and what you name it in order to reflect updates and revisions, that's something that everyone must have access to remotely and be on the same page with remotely as well. Third bullet, of course, one of the tools we're using here, video conferencing and chat. So there are numerous options for video conferencing tools available now. My opinion is that they're generally very close and commoditized, so I can't make a recommendation or preference, but as part of that, chat tools as well. So these are, of course, the more instant, real-time, and of course, chat was born from the instant message, as you may be aware, the more real-time ways to communicate. And then lastly, website measurement suites. So there are free tools like Google Analytics, for instance, that help your team, when it's remote, keep a pulse on what is happening on your website. What are your customers looking at? What are your non-customers looking at? How is your traffic performing? How far may it be down in this unusual time? And what does that predict or mean for how the sales or marketing side of your business needs to react? And then lastly, consider client-facing options for task statuses or key developments. So I'll have an example here, on an upcoming slide that talks about client statuses and task statuses, and essentially we use a color-coded tool, okay, to communicate our different statuses both to our team and our clients, so everyone knows where we are in that process, okay. And then in the interest of helping you choose the best tool, in the case you haven't chose one yet, my recommendation is to choose tools your business can grow into. What do I mean by that? Well, when we were looking for a number of these tools a few years ago, to enhance what we were doing remotely, I was okay, and I actually sought out tools that were a little bigger and more powerful than we needed at that point in time, because I knew that it involved significant cost change and retraining to implement one of these tools. I did not want to be changing it every year, 2 years. I looked for something that I could buy today and grow into over 3, 4, maybe 5 years, so that we have the continuity of systems, and that, of course, is important for efficiency. So if your business does not have these tools yet, or does not have all of these tools that I would consider essential, except for the client-facing task statuses, you can certainly operate your business without that. Look for tools that, while they may be a little more than you need today, that you can see your business growing into in the very near future. Okay, so I mentioned that was the third tip. Okay, the fourth tip, daily morning huddles. So if we back up a second and consider office life, okay, we recognize that a lot happens in seemingly impromptu or walk-up meetings, so to speak. There may be a small gathering, it becomes a larger gathering, and that's important because it facilitates person-to-person verbal communication. And obviously, that's a key part of how we get work done. In our business, I noticed that seemed to be lacking. And it was around 2017, and I just sensed the shift, and I knew that this was going to continue to be a challenge as far as how can we replicate or replace the in-person conversation. So what I did is I established daily morning huddles, and it's simply a brief conference call, okay, but it happens every morning, Monday through Friday. It is with our senior team members only, and the purpose of the call is big picture items and perspectives. So it is not a call that talks about individual brand assets or individual details of one particular project in the midst. It's for big picture items, big picture perspective, and then for those key projects that are either on a rush deadline or the deadline is now, in other words, or it's strategically mission critical. We will use these daily morning huddles to focus on certain details of key projects, but I use it to set the tone for the day and provide an overview to my team of what we should be focusing on and what's important from a time priority basis and a project priority basis as well as coordination for updates that may have occurred after hours. We use this call to set the table for the day, so to speak. Importantly, this also harkens back to a concept I introduced earlier, which is leveraging your morning time, okay? We're probably all familiar with concepts and guidelines that say the most important things should happen in the morning. This is not dissimilar from that. Again, it really encourages everyone to think about where they can get the most bang for their time in the day, and especially in those cases where you must communicate updates from one executive to another team leader. Of course, the sooner you can get those updates into your senior team leaders' hands, the faster they'll be able to spread it to their other team members, their direct reports, and other people within your organization that need to know. So these daily morning huddles have helped us immensely just stay engaged, number one, create more of a team environment from a verbal communication standpoint on a regular basis, and also leverages the morning to communicate all of our key initiatives and agenda items that everyone who is not on the call must know to do the best job of their day as well. I'm sure there may be a question coming up about how long we speak for, if there's any time guidelines. Because it is a huddle and it's big picture items in perspective, my rule of thumb is that it goes no longer than 15 minutes. If there's something that we need to discuss in more detail, we will typically hang up on the team call, and then I will speak with that individual director or senior leader individually separately. Okay, so I'm not saying 15 minutes is the only way or the best way. That's my rule of thumb, because again, the purpose is to keep it crisp and focused on the big picture items, not to draw down into all of the details at that time. Okay, so productivity and management as another tip, and really it's the fifth essential tip for working remotely that you can implement today. Okay, so the first thing I would encourage everyone to establish, if they haven't already, are what are the essential performance metrics for your business? Is it your man capacity utilized? Is it on-time delivery? Is it reworks and or rejects of work that you've sent to a client? Is it number of hours spent per asset? I'm sure, as you can envision, there are numerous key measurements or key metrics that every business will have unique to them. Establish them as a starting point, because they will go into how you measure productivity and manage productivity remotely, okay? Now, as we go to the other side of the spectrum, instead of internal, it's of course client service. Measure the compliments you receive during this time. Measure the above and beyond actions taken by your team. And I know that can sound a little abstract, but if you encourage your team to think this way, it will become more concrete, because you'll be able to then highlight examples of someone going above and beyond for a client and track that. And then others on your team will see what an above and beyond action truly looks like. Okay. Once you have your metrics established, publish them in a real-time format. What do I mean by that? It could be a proprietary dashboard. It could also be something as simple as a Google spreadsheet. So that's a real-time collaboration spreadsheet. I have an example of how we do it in a Google Doc coming for you next, showing some of the metrics that you see here. And then the last bullet, okay? Of course, measurement is no good if you don't use it to help improve your team and hold them accountable. So as you roll out these metrics and as these tools are made part of your remote productivity management suite, it's imperative that everyone knows this is how they'll be held accountable going forward, at least for the period of this remote work. Of course, you can change how you hold them accountable at any point, but to keep everyone on the same page from a remote standpoint, I would inform them that this report will go a long way to assessing how you gauge their performance. Okay. So now I'm sure you may be wondering, as an employer, how do I, Yep. So that was the fifth tip. I didn't mean to blow through that so quickly. That was the fifth tip, productivity management. So to recap, the 5 initial tips for immediate action: okay, mindset, time segments of your day, daily morning huddles, productivity and management, okay, and then the communication through collaboration tools and platforms, which is making technology your friend. So as an employer, and I know we have some on the call, and I know we have employees on the call as well, so I'll also share some tips and bullets for both audiences about how I recommend they can help lead their organization effectively. So it first must start with trust, okay? And I know that's a big point of concern for many employees. How do I trust that, or many employers, how do I trust that my employees are staying on track and they're doing everything at home that they would be doing in the office? And while this may not be the ideal answer, the thing I needed to learn how to do was simply to hire and work with people that I trusted. In other words, if I would not trust them to work in my office, I really could not trust them to work at home. And so, unfortunately, this is not a panacea for that. If you don't trust someone to work in your office, it would be hard to see how you could trust them to work at home. But if you start with trust and plan for the growth of this being a prolonged work environment, as well as the opportunity for efficiency that comes after it, I think as an employer, you will be in the best possible position to have your business benefit from how you lead and manage the group remotely. Secondly, inform clients of a change in environment. I'm sure we've all been on both sides of the spectrum. We're clients of people, we have clients, and I think most of us would agree that over communication is good, and surprises or under communication to our clients is typically not. So certainly inform the clients of the change in the environment proactively, let them know the steps you're taking, what that may mean for your team or your service hours, to keep your clients informed to help best lead and manage the business. Then when we get into teamwork and the leadership of culture and projects within the business, okay, I would plan to over-communicate very early and very often. What do I mean by that? Not just repeating yourself, but building redundancies via both written and verbal directions, or maybe you have decision-making meetings. Build in some additional redundancies as you first start to lead the organization remotely, because people will forget. People will not write things down. It's part of simply operating in the environment that we're in at this point, given the unusual climate. So if you have redundancies like meetings or follow-up emails built in as part of your process or system, that will help you not only over-communicate, but make sure that what you are communicating is exactly the correct thing as far as leading the organization or the thing that you want done specifically. If you haven't yet, digitize or document your guidelines, manuals, processes, anything related to how your business actually functions, and plan to retrain on them. So you could hold a webinar just like this or a conference call just like this one, but at a starting point, all of the documents, guidelines, manuals, in order to make the most of your opportunity to lead the organization remotely, they must be documented, and I would plan to retrain on them once your workforce is fully remote. Okay. Hold regular virtual meetings, especially for those key business functions that are essential. Okay, so as a quick rule of thumb, if you were meeting on it regularly in the office, do it virtually as well. If there are areas of your business that you may not have been meeting on virtually, but you sense that they're more and more important as remote work takes hold, I would set up regular virtual meetings, especially if they're essential to your delivery processes or business functions, to ensure they operate at the same or a better level they did in the brick and mortar. Okay. And lastly, and it was something we discussed on a previous slide, is implement a transparent measurement system for productivity and performance. It's something that we update weekly in our agency remotely. And again, it brings a tremendous benefit, and that everyone is on the same page as far as performance by individuals and business lines within our agency. And so those are my major tips for employees and how they can help best lead and manage the organization remotely. Okay. So I talked about a productivity measurement report, and of course it was on that bullet. So this is one that we use. And you'll see I have some of the metrics that I mentioned up here. Okay, of course, we track capacity, reworks, rejects. This is a weekly productivity measurement report that we have, and you can see that it's a Google spreadsheet, and it utilizes comments, which are what those orange triangles are on the top right. And we measure this weekly, and you can see while not everything has a number bigger than 0, we calculate trends and percentages the same way any office environment would. And this is what all of our team members see. So again, everyone is able to work from the same page, and this is just one example of how you can measure productivity on both a team level or a business division level as you're working remotely. Employees, so you may be wondering, okay, well, how can I show when I am doing everything I should be doing then more? How can I show it? How can I prove that I'm not slacking off at home? How can I communicate that I'm engaged, that I'm staying focused on what I should be? And here are some tips that we have for that as well. And the first one is very similar to the employer slide, which is over-communicate, especially in the beginning. Okay? I would recommend to stay in close touch and ask questions of your employer or direct supervisor, such as, how can I make remote work easier for you? Or what would you like to see differently as far as how I work with you remotely? Okay? That way, not only are you being proactive about making sure remote work works for your supervisors, but you're also creating an opportunity for the expectations to be communicated and ensure that you're matching them with your work. I would also utilize the collaboration tools to their maximum extent. So anytime you can update something or move a project status further along, do not wait, do it. Okay? When leaders see a dashboard and they see things are changing and moving, it will create peace of mind that that project is indeed moving forward, this person is indeed moving forward, and it will eliminate a future question from your supervisor as to what's going on with that status, which of course raises a question in their mind if you're being proactive. So I would highly recommend maximizing anything you can use on your collaboration tools or project management suites to demonstrate progress more frequently. Next bullet, communicate with a focus on the deadline. Okay, and especially in an agency business and other service businesses, deadlines are essential. And I can tell you that missing deadlines is a primary employer concern, especially in remote work. It's something I speak about with other remote CEOs and other agency folks. It's probably the top concern in the creative space. And so as the project begins as an employee and you're communicating to it or about it with your supervisor or with other team members, reiterate the deadline across all your major communications. In addition to demonstrating that you're engaged, it also benefits the overall team that you're communicating consistently what the deadline is. Okay? And of course, your employer, if they're wise, will pick up on that and recognize you're showing leadership skills relative to the deadline. When you're discussing tactics, strategies, options, things of that sort, aim to always discuss them relative to the timeline. First and foremost, can we do this in the time provided? Secondly, is this something that allows us to maximize the timeline, or can we do more? And so when you're talking about your alternatives and plans for executing the goal, frame it from the perspective of how does this help us meet or beat the deadline? And then lastly, it's probably one that you're all already doing or have done in the past. Alert supervisors or employers to any deadline concerns ASAP. I think everyone can manage deadline concerns in a work environment and actions are taken. The issues with remote work typically arise when deadlines are not communicated as far as concerns, or if there are hurdles or roadblocks in a project and those are not communicated. So in a simple form, I would ask your takeaway to be to plan to very closely and overly communicate, especially in the beginning, to demonstrate progress. Some additional ways you can do that, and this may be part of your normal course of business as well. Provide feedback on the tools and resources you've been given. So it'll share, when you share thoughts on the product management tools, the video conferencing, the website measurement suites, share your thoughts on them. Volunteer them. It could be a quick 2-minute phone call. It could be a brief email, but it demonstrates that you're engaged and you're aware of what's expected. And more importantly, it demonstrates that you're thinking about what you need to do and assessing your tool in the context of if it can actually help you do it. And when you're able to draw a connection with your employer that you've thought about what you need to do, you've considered the resources you've been given, and you do or don't think that you can get it done, given those tools, that's a way an employer can have peace of mind that you're actively thinking about not only what you've been asked to do, but what you've been given and how you can get there. And that's a very objective measurement of engagement and demonstrating progress. Okay. And then lastly, I would seek team member and client feedback more regularly, again, especially at the beginning, and then share it with the employer. So one example, if you're a client contact in your business or an internal contact for a key person within your business, seek feedback from them more regularly, directly if you want, and then share it with your employer. Because the fact that you're taking steps to say to your client or your key report within your industry, or within your organization, that you want to know that what you're doing remotely is working for them, and if it's not, how you can adjust. That would be a lot of employers' dreams, in my opinion, just to understand that their employee has a conscientious concern that remote work is different, and they're not only acknowledging that, but they're reaching out to your team members or your clients to ensure that how you're operating remotely works for them. Guys, I don't think there's an employer out there that wouldn't take that, number one, as a sign of progress, but number two, take that as a sign of an individual they want on their team, regardless of the environment. So those are my tips for how employees can demonstrate progress during this environment. Okay, I talked about dashboards and using them to communicate a little bit as far as statuses and things of that sort. So here's one that we use. It's called Monday. It's our project management tool and collaboration tool. But I mentioned color coding and updates and things of that sort to communicate that you are being proactive. This is what my view looks like that I see on a daily basis, okay? And of course, those acronyms can mean different things for different businesses. In our case, the SFA you see in blue there simply means sent for approval to the client. And this helps us not only keep our clients apprised of their individual task statuses, but also keeps us as a team aware of where everyone is. We're in lockstep, and we know not only what stage the project is in, but if it's published or if it needs further feedback. So I highly recommend, if you don't have a task management or project management tool that can do something like this, that you can also turn around and easily communicate to your clients where things stand, I would recommend investing in one, especially as a function of this remote work environment. Between the easy display of statuses, the color coding, and the progress bars, it makes life very easy for everyone to stay on track and aware of statuses. Okay. So this is where I'll get into a little bit of the bonus, and that's the marketing response 101 component to this. And I'll backtrack for a second and say that, of course, the first content in the proposal, the remote work environment setup, is the fundamental point. But then once you achieve that, your next question is probably, okay, how does my business respond to this environment? My team is ready, my remote work tools are in place, everyone feels comfortable with the communication, we're ready to go, what do I do? That is very likely your next question as far as navigating this environment and continuing to implement your mission and goals for your business. So as a starting point for how you market or respond to this situation digitally, I thought that it would be very beneficial to share some of the common questions we're getting from clients, and then also what we're recommending them to do both now and how to prepare for the future, because this will change the way we do business going forward throughout the consumer economy at a minimum. So as a starting point, think help, don't sell, okay? We've probably all seen it at this point. There are numerous email blasts from vendors, companies, typically service providers. They may not even realize they're doing this, but they are selling. And from both some personal experience as well as others' experiences that have been passed along to me, I think at this point, you do run the risk of your audience finding that potentially distasteful, at least from a position of trying to make a sale. And so what we recommend is starting from a position of how can we help? How does our product either help manage the situation a person may find themselves in? For example, one of our clients has offered valet service to people's homes at this particular juncture because they know they don't want to leave the house. Of course, that's a valuable service they're providing, but its starting point is that it helps because it solves the problem of me not wanting to leave my house. So start with how your business can help as part of your marketing response, and don't start with what you can sell, okay? So on the note of how you can help, the first place we recommend starting is creating a public service announcement, otherwise known as a PSA, okay? And detail how your business is enhancing the cleaning and sanitization procedures or your personnel hygiene procedures, okay? In other words, share what your business is doing to make things safer for your customers, okay? And then before you even send it out, share it internally first with your team, okay? You not only want to make everyone aware of it, but this will help ensure full alignment, especially across the people that are answering your phones that will likely face questions about this PSA that you've published. Secondly, I would create a prominent homepage graphic or graphics to display your PSA. You could link to it, you could have it appear right on your homepage. I personally don't see a major difference there, but you will want visual support for your PSA on your homepage. Again, especially if it's reflecting adjusted hours, or especially if you're taking some substantial steps to clean your facility or disinfect your facility more regularly, or if you're using things like gloves on your frontline workforce. Those are all things you want to draw as much attention as possible to give customers the peace of mind that they can still do business with you safely. Okay? And then lastly, once you have your homepage graphics up and the PSA has been digested by your team and understood by your team, I would then publish it to social media and via email, okay? So those would be the initial steps to respond from a marketing standpoint for your business, okay? Part two, okay, so after you do those things, and I know this first bullet may or may not be as relevant given the executive order announced yesterday, but prior to that, and may even still apply, review and update your hours or days that may have been affected online. So your website, Google, Facebook, Yelp, there are dozens out there. And so we're including a free tool in here that we use as an agency. It's called Moz. What it does is it identifies essentially the 99% of the sites where your hours are published. And of course, that's important because then you know where to go to adjust hours in light of this. So that's what is on the red link there. You can click it. It will simply ask you to enter your business name, and then it will tell you all of the websites around the internet, including but not limited to the ones above, that publish your hours online. Okay, so your PSA page, I would also create visibility for it on your other highly trafficked pages. So maybe it's your about page. Maybe you have a particular product page that is always second or third behind your homepage as far as traffic. I would take a look at your top 3 to 5 web pages that are not your homepage, and then create visibility and link to your PSA from those pages as well. Because granted, most people will start on your homepage, not everyone will. And it's important in this situation that everyone does truly see your message, or at least that you're doing something about it as a starting point. And then lastly, I would prepare for traffic and inquiries from your PSA email. Okay, so once you send that PSA email out, your team should be prepared that the next 2 to 3 hours may be quite busy for them. And what you can do is provide them with written responses to questions you anticipate coming in response to your PSA, okay? Again, I think the more you can over-communicate and be on the same page with written guidance at this point, especially if you're new to remote work, which I know most of us are, the written responses to anticipated questions will limit the scrambling and the improvisation in what is already a chaotic time, okay? So why did I mention your employees will likely receive emails within the first 2 hours, okay? So these are some charts that we've taken from some of our clients about how quickly their emails are opened, okay? So all the way on the left, and this is a 24-hour chart, all the way on the left is the time at which that email was deployed, so roughly 4 p.m., okay? The orange line represents the people that opened that email. You can see that aside from a brief pickup the following morning, that the vast majority of the email open and engagement happened within the first few hours it was sent. And more specifically, happened in the first hour because the high point is 4 p.m. when the email was sent. So that means that if there are to be any inquiries or questions coming out of your email, they are very likely to happen within those first few hours. And then I would also advise your team to be alert for the morning after for follow-up questions. Why? Because here's another example. Same pattern. You can see that by and large, all of the opens happened right when the email was sent, and then it gradually flattened as time went along over the next 24 hours, with a brief open uptick again around 7 through 9 a.m. the following morning. Okay. I know I showed 2 examples here, and individual emails your organization may send may very well have a different pattern. All I could say is this is something that we've seen pretty consistently over about 4 years, 5 years since this has been a reporting point, that the vast majority of email opens and clicks occur within those first 2 hours, and so you should be prepared, most especially at that time, for questions or opportunities. Okay. So once you get around that, this is something that I would encourage every business to consider, which is, how does this outbreak, how does this health crisis change how people are exposed to your brand or utilize your products and services? Because, as I mentioned, I truly believe, and numerous others do, this is going to change the way we do business. And so that does mean it will change the way people become exposed to your brand or utilize your products and services. And so every brand will have a different response to this. Every business, every service line may even have a different response to this. But I would highly encourage all of you to consider, as you're thinking about future marketing responses, how does this change how people are exposed to your business, number one, or how do they utilize their products and services? You may discover that people are using your products and services for things you've never even marketed about. And people have just discovered a different use on their own through whatever ingenuity or vision they may have had for how it could benefit them. So this would be my primary takeaway, and probably the number one way you can help grow your business after you're comfortable working remotely is considering and making adjustments to the changes in how people are exposed to your product. So going forward, and just to recap and summarize, this is an opportunity and you can do this, okay? Prepare to leverage remote work into the future, and you will be in the best possible position, and highly think about or highly consider what services or products your businesses can fulfill in the field. What can you do mobilely? What can you do at someone's home that may not require you to be in their home? That is where a lot of the opportunity that's being captured is taking place at this point, is going to people's homes or even virtually and delivering the services or goods that way. Okay. I would also encourage you to think about, what does your business do uniquely that can be applied as an advantage in this climate? And what can you look at as far as how are people engaging with your website, either on certain pages or certain buying points, to gather behavioral changes? In other words, your website can be your leading indicator of how people are changing their behavior as far as shopping for their products. So keep an eye on all of those things as we go forward. Okay. So then literally essentially just to recap the 5 items, and it starts with implementing a mindset of immediate action that you are at work. Okay. Secondarily, bucketing your day into time segments, be it sales segments, client communication, strategic time, tactical time, quality assurance time. Bucket your day into segments. Leverage the technology that you've been provided, the collaboration tools, project management tools. Use it to make communication your friend and make technology your friend. 4th, communicate daily on a regular basis with senior team leaders. And then lastly, implement a productivity and measurement tool that everyone can access remotely and everyone can see in a transparent, real-time fashion, so that you can not only track the productivity of your business, but that everyone's aware of how they're doing, which of course keeps everyone accountable and performing to the best of their abilities. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention. I hope you found it useful and helpful for helping your business navigate a remote work environment and making the best of the foreseeable future. At this time, I'll open it up for any Q&A.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Justin. Excellent job. And I want to just encourage people to, if you click by your name, there's a drop-down button, and you have an opportunity to send a chat message. So that's how we are asking questions be sent, and they will come to me. Please send them to me, Michelle Soccer. Okay, Justin, I wanted to thank you. I think you made an excellent point while we'll get a couple questions here about positioning yourself of how you can help solve a problem rather than selling at this point. And can you share, have you had, and then you also talked about how important it is to post a PSA and communicate that to your clients, well, internally first as an organization and then externally second. Can you talk about more with the PSA, what responses you've had, and you said be ready that once you post that in the next 2 to 3 hours, you'll probably have a lot of activity and be ready to respond to that. Can you speak a little bit more to that and how you can be prepared so that you're strategically posting timely information, but also your staff's ready to respond in a timely manner?
Right. So I'll just jump back. Great question, Michelle. So I think part of the question was keeping your team prepared for incoming activity after you email your PSA. And that's correct. And that just references back to these charts. Historically, emails from businesses, email campaigns, in other words, not one-to-one, but one-to-many emails, they are opened and engaged very early on after they are sent. And this chart shows the pattern with the orange and purple lines representing opens and clicks. And this one shows a very similar pattern as well. So what this means essentially is that if people are going to take action from reading your PSA, it's very likely to happen essentially right after it was sent, because that's when the vast majority of eyeballs first engage in it, first see it. You can see on this line here and the pattern of the other chart as well, very rarely do you get any greater amount of opens than when it was first sent. And so when that activity is going to happen, that's the time that it's most likely to happen in. As far as what we're recommending for client responses on their PSAs, the first thing I want to point out is that every business will do things differently. And so I don't think there is necessarily a right and a wrong as far as what your PSA contains. What I think the critical parts are that you're first addressing the situation to understand their concerns, but that you're sticking to the facts. What do I mean by that? Are you using gloves? Are you using other disposable materials that people may, or to cover what people may touch related to your product or your service, that are changed every time a new customer interacts with it, so to speak? Are you adjusting your hours in any form or fashion? If you are, for instance, a tailoring business or a business where people would traditionally come to you in order to receive service, are you now offering personnel to go to that person's house and pick up their clothes outside, very similar to what a dry cleaner may do, right? And so those are the ways to help and not sell, in my opinion, is thinking, how can we get mobile? What do we need to do as far as bringing our service to people to make it easier? And when you make things easier, you do help. And so I think your business can benefit both ways. Certainly you want to capture any new opportunity that comes from delivering a service that makes it easier down the road, but it's also a way to help people now. And so I would put that in your PSA. If certain days may have been closed or certain businesses aren't open on certain days, include that in your PSA as well. And some clients have asked to incorporate, Michelle, to your question, guidelines regarding health and safety. When we have done that, we have adhered to what the CDC has said. We typically have not recommended clients making guidelines or statements of their own for health reasons or regarding health for various reasons. But if you do that, and we have had a client ask to do that, we recommend your PSA contains information only from the leading health authority in your market or country, and I know most of us are in the US, so that's the CDC, but only cite the facts that are medically bulletproof, so to speak, if you do want to do that in your PSA. And unfortunately, right now, there may not be many, but if you do choose to do that, I would source them and cite them heavily as coming from a medical or scientific expert and not your particular business. Hope that answered the question. Happy to answer others.
Yes, thank you. Another question that came in. Someone noticed that you have from 12 to 1 blocked out without meetings or activities? Is that a time that you use for exercise or to get outside or to do something for yourself? How flexible is that? And if you're an employee, how do you communicate that to your boss that you're trying to keep work-life balance and just be healthy and keep your sanity while all this is going on so that they're comfortable with that?
Great questions. So, and great observation. Whoever picked that up is very detail oriented. So the short answer is I typically use it for lunch, not the whole hour, but I leave that time there so that I have some flexible time to eat and go for a quick workout if I want. Or if I have a meeting request that may not be strategic or tactical, it's maybe a little gray, I'll typically do it around that time on the phone. Flexible time as well, of course. And of course, I don't eat lunch every day, so sometimes that time is just worked right through as an extension of my tactical time. So I keep it open for various reasons. And certainly some of the examples the questioner gave about exercise or flexible time would apply. As far as communicating that to your boss, we're all human. And so I would start from a standpoint of I want to be transparent with you about how I plan to spend my time, and also let you know that there's some time here that the same way I would in the office, I'm planning it to have my lunch or to maybe handle some personal items. I think most people, and I know everyone's different, but at least I would say I would hope most bosses are understanding and accommodating of that. And probably a lot of executives on the call are hearing things like, hey, you may hear my children or my dog on the call, or I may have to take a break to care for an elderly family member who's living with me. I know that's some of the things we faced on our team. And so from that standpoint, I would be transparent with your supervisor or the boss about your schedule and what you're planning for that, and that you do need flexible time because you are a human and a person outside of work. And I would also let them know, hey, you may hear some noise in the background. You may hear my dog bark. I may not be available from 2 to 2:30 because my kids are at home and I do something with them at that point. That's probably the best advice I could give.
That is great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Another question, any advice on prospecting without being salesy if you're dependent on new clients and you're selling a service like health insurance, life insurance, real estate, and you're self-employed?
Yeah, great question. I would look at it two ways. The first thing I would do is I would think about what thought leadership you may have to offer during this time. So what do I mean by that? How can you share some of your tips or intellectual property regarding how your product service is used? How can you write about it? How can you do video casts about it? How can you share it to your Facebook channel? I would start with what can you give to the community at this point as far as your specific field of expertise in insurance or real estate or prospecting. Talk about that, talk about the key details, and publish it. And what that does first and foremost is it's unobtrusive. So you're not being salesy if you're simply taking all of the knowledge and resources you've accumulated and communicating it to your website or your LinkedIn. That's helpful, especially if there are things people can take from it right away. Then secondly, and I know this may be a bit of an old axiom, I would look to resell or prospect my existing customers or people that are already in my CRM before I try to create new relationships from direct sales at this point. Of course, a current customer or a recent customer is usually your best chance at a new customer, or at the very least a referral to a new customer. And there's very less likelihood that this will be considered as a sales message from you because they've known you before this happened, right? In my opinion, if I were to get an email, and I am getting them, unfortunately, from brand new people trying to sell me brand new services, specifically in light of what's going on now, I think you may be making it harder than it needs to be. If you're trying to find purely brand new people, I think the time attention is very stretched at this point. There's a lot of hesitancy when it comes to buying actions at this point. And so while I can't say that this is the best way to do it, I would recommend starting with upselling or reselling your existing customers and asking them for referrals, because they're going to be the most receptive to your sales efforts. And they may also be the warmest introduction to others who will be during this time. But before you get to that point, I just want to reiterate, I would start by sharing and publishing what you know that's unique to you. Let that serve as a sales message in its own unique way, that you are the authority. And then I would start with people who already know you, ask them for referrals, or see what else you can offer them that would help their particular situation.
I sincerely think that's an excellent answer. It's very concrete. It's things people can implement immediately. And I like how practical you are in your suggestions, because you're giving people tools, in my opinion, that they can put to work today. We don't have any more questions. You're so welcome. Thank you. I don't have any more questions that have come in. It is also 11 a.m. and I wanted to respect your time, Justin, and everyone on the call. I want to thank everyone for joining today. I also want to encourage people to, as much as you can, stay positive, be positive, look for opportunities. Justin, I think, just gave a lot of great ideas. Justin, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and time with us at the Chamber, and for being a trustee and a loyal member. We're very grateful. The more I get to know you and hear your presentations, I can absolutely see how you would be an effective and thoughtful CEO. So thank you for your leadership in a challenging time.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you again to everyone in the Chamber, and most importantly, thank you to the audience for your time. I know there were a number of you on this call, and collectively that's a lot of time out of the course of a day. So thank you all for your time and attention. I hope everyone stays healthy, and I also hope everyone is able to utilize this to make the best of the environment we're in for the time being, and to help their business move forward as much as possible in this unusual time. So best wishes to everyone, and thank you again for your time and attention. And if we can provide any additional assistance, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.